This is Helen, 10 years old. He is a cheerful child with a lot of friends. Like other children, games and laughter is everything to him. His best friend Phil often goes to Helen's home to play with him. Helen's parents are always busy with work. His father often travels for several months. His mother always returns home at midnight. Compared to others, Phil is rather more mature kid. Both he and Helen enjoy drawing, but Phil's drawings is always negative and creepy graffiti. He says a sort of venting and makes him feel better. On a snowy day, Phil, as usual, takes his drawing bag and goes to Helen's home. Helen opened the heating and welcomed him. Although it is winter, the heating in the room makes Phil feel warm. "You're sweating. Take off your coat. I'll hang it somewhere," Helen says, as he sees Phil sweating everywhere. Phil hesitates for a few seconds. "No thanks." He shakes his head. Helen rushes forward to pull Phil's coat sleeves and sees his wrist covered in bruises. "Is it your father? Did he get drunk again?" Helen says. Phil lowers his head, but doesn't respond to Helen's question. "Come to the bathroom. I'll help you apply analgesic cream," Helen says. They entered the bathroom, and Phil took off his coat. His neck and back are all full of bruises. Helen's hands rubs the slab on his back. Helen cannot imagine how Phil's father treats him. Phil's father is a drunkard. He was violent to his wife and child. Phil's mother couldn't endure it anymore, so she left the family. After then, his mother remarried and lived a happy life. Occasionally she would bring some gift to Phil. His father complained about this. He distorted the truth, pushing all blame to Phil's mother. "You should stay away from him. He isn't fit to be your father," Helen says. "I know that, but I don't know what to do. We're just children," Phil says. "I just don't want you hurt, brother." Phil goes silent for a few seconds and replies, "Things will get better, right?" He smiles bitterly. Helen doesn't understand why Phil doesn't fight back, why he always pretends nothing happened in front of everyone else, even if it is something severe. One morning, Phil wakes up before his father does and prepares to go to Helen's house. He puts on his shoes, walks out, and after walking a few steps, he sees something waving to him. "Phil, my dear, it's Mom," Phil's mother says. Phil rushes to her for a hug. "Mom brought new clothes for you. It's cold in winter. Remember to wear warm clothes." His mother has bags full of new clothes, toys, watercolor, and pastel, as well as caring words that came from a lovely mother. Being able to meet his mother is the happiest thing for Phil. After chatting with him for a while, she prepares to leave. "Mom, can't you stay with me for a little longer?" Phil says. "I'm sorry, dear. My husband is waiting for me in the car." His mother leaves the gifts to Phil and proceeds to the car where her new husband is. Phil picks up the gifts and proceeds to the park and sits on the snow and gazes at the sky. He doesn't know what to do. Once he took the gifts back home, his father was very angry with him and threw the gifts into the fireplace to burn them. He doesn't want this to happen again. Just then, 3 kids come to him. "You have the bitch's garbage again?" one of the kids says. "What did you say?" Phil looks at him. "We saw your mother. My parents told me. She's a bitch who abandoned her husband and child to live with another man." "No, she isn't." Phil gets angry and shouts at them. "That's the truth. What the hell can you do about it?" he says aggressively. He pushes Phil's shoulder to provoke him, but Phil punches him, which starts the fight. One of the kids pick up a stone and threw it at Phil's head. The stone as well, as the white snow gets dyed with red. Phil falls to the ground, eyes wide, and stops moving. Oh my god, what did you do? I fear I just hope he fucking stops. What should we do now? Perhaps we can bury him. At the time, Helen waits for Phil. He looks for her out the window and sees nobody coming. He rushes out to look for Phil as he is worried about him. But he can't find him. He comes to the park and sits on the bench. But then he sees something unusual colors in the snow, with some of them being red. He suddenly has a very bad feeling. He takes off his gloves and digs the snow with his hands. He then sees more and more red. This is not good, he thinks. Next he thinks he touched something. A nose, then a face. Phil's face. Helen's best friend is buried in the snow. Oh no. Helen touches his face and cries. Just then, he heard footsteps. He sees the 3 kids standing beside him. They looked at him with a despising manner and ran away, without saying a word. Helen doesn't know what's going on and doesn't understand what it means. Helen cries for a long time beside the body, until someone grabbed his shoulder from behind. Are you Helen Otis? Helen turns around and sees a police officer and his mother. The 3 kids framed him as the murderer. Helen doesn't have any evidence to killing him and tried to bury him, according to the 3 witnesses. After the investigation and interrogation, Helen goes home, enters his room, and sits on the bed. After a few minutes, his mother comes in and sits beside him. Mommy, I didn't kill anyone. Helen's blue eyes show fear. I know, but the situation is not good for you. His mother hugs her child as she speaks with a choking voice. There is no clear evidence that Helen killed Phil, but as an accused person, he doesn't have any specific argument to refuse. He doesn't even know what happened. The next day, Helen sees other children playing in the park, and all of them looked at him. Hi, what's up? You killed Phil. My parents told me to stay away from you, the kid says. Dad said you're a killer. That is not true, Helen replies. We can't be sure. Maybe you're lying, one of the children says. Helen knows whatever he says will be in vain. All the friends backed away from him. No one believed him. Everyone regards him as a murderer. Helen, good news! Helen's mother wakes him up in the morning. There was a witness to the whole thing. He is willing to testify for you. Helen is surprised. He can't believe to have someone to have witnessed the whole thing. He explained everything and finally let the whole thing in. Helen, I want to thank them tomorrow. Do you want to go with me? Maybe you can become friends. Helen's mother prepared some gifts for the witness. No, I want to stay home to draw. Helen has given up on making any friends. He has changed. He has become indifferent, with his drawing full of negative and strange graffiti. When it comes to snowy days, he will remember those dreadful eyes with the corpse that was in the snow. That memory is what he can't forget, even if he wants to. The witness, Vic Stephen, 3 years later, changed his name to Tom Stephen.